I'm here again with Dr. John Frank, who's going to be presenting this lesson on major gift solicitation strategy, the ask, and case for support. So go ahead, John.
All right. We're going to jump right into it now. Again, as I said at the beginning, it's all about relationship. This is a simple donor cultivation cycle. Again, remembering when I said this is all about one-to-one. We're not doing groups of people. We're not doing a banquet of people. This is one-to-one. So first of all, you identify someone that may be from your current list and their giving history, or it might be someone that refers someone to you. You gather information on them. Who are they? Where do they work? Do they own companies? You know, what types of things, what station in life are they? And then what are they interested in? Have they been a donor to your organization? How long? What amounts of money? Do you find that they're involved in other nonprofits or other situations? And then what are ways that you can get them involved? You know, there may be a donor, maybe on one of your advisory committees, maybe they're even potential board members, different things like that. Maybe if you are a rescue mission, they've actually come down and served a meal, those kinds of things. And the final step would be when is the right opportunity in the right situation to ask them to invest in the ministry, in which case you just gain new information. So that's the cycle. It's simple, but it is appropriate to look at and keep yourself geared up as the person that's going to talk to people, be in contact with people, that this is, you don't just go from, I identified someone, let's ask them for money. Oh, that's a wealthy person, let's ask him for money. So you notice there's no arrow between those two. So the whole idea is don't do something impulsive just because you think they have money. I know in nonprofits we get eager, we're needy, those kind of things. But with major donors, that kind of, jerky moving is not acceptable. So take the time to get to know them is what I'm saying. Not very smoothly, but I am saying that.
Yeah, that's
All
good
right.
advice.
Now, here is what I think is one of the most important slides in this class. This is where one of my donors many years ago said, John, do I have to ask for money every time I talk to a major donor? And he was a really popular leader and everybody wanted to talk to him. And I said, no, that shouldn't be the case. Not if we see it holistically, rather than just, okay, we have direct mail this month into this. No, this is about a long-term relationship. So let me dig in and tell you how I use this. First of all, on the left, a major donor prospect. What are they? Well, someone, maybe they're on your donor list, maybe not. Maybe they've come to an event. Maybe they've given small gifts, but you know they're capable of larger gifts. How do you know that? Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. So the next set of boxes are, well, what's the purpose of meeting with them? What's the purpose of emailing them, social media, or inviting them to sit at your table, taking them to lunch? I will say that going to someone's home is not as popular and appropriate as was years past. People are much more concerned about privacy and who gave you our name and some of those things. So anyway, whatever you set up, your main goal is to get acquainted, find out who they are. You might share general organizational information. Well, here's what we're doing now. Here's our newest project. Here's where something we've had some success. And then thirdly, attaining more about them. Tell me about your family. How long have you worked at this company? What are some of the things you do in free time or with your family? Okay, so that really, back to my don't just go from identification to investment. Excuse me. You need to use this time to be a real person and represent your ministry, your organization. Now, the middle box, major donor. They are a major donor. They give over cumulatively, is my view. Others may not agree with that. But if you're a small, medium organization, you may see cumulatively $500. That could be a lot to you. Others, I believe there's a psychological level at $1,000 or more in a year. Now, if you're a multi-million-dollar organization and you do a report of how many give you over $1,000 in a year, and you come up with 400 people, well, that's a little difficult to make personal contacts with unless you have like 4 or 5 major donor staff. So the point is that you may raise the amount to 3,000 or 5,000 to get it into a more manageable amount. Now, why are you going to talk to them? Well, these are some of the reasons I put up there. You may be just going to thank them and appreciate. Maybe they gave you a year-end December gift and you're going to thank them in January, February. You may want to share a vision for future ministry. We're planning to take our ministry to this country, or we're planning to add this building and do this. A sponsorship opportunity. I'm coming to talk to you about our annual banquet and I wonder if you and your company would like to be a sponsor. It may be a brand new project, something no one's ever heard of, and you're coming to them and saying, you know, I'm just coming to a handful of people, leaders that I want to share this new project with. Now, the annual project in general needs, excuse me. We could spend a lot of time on this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to make it quick, so you may have to go back and listen to this. But for the annual fund with a major donor, I believe in taking your departments or divisions of ministry and dividing them by percentage of expenses. In other words, let's say you're a $1 million organization and you're a rescue mission. 50% of your budget goes to men's ministry. 30% goes to women and children ministry. 15% goes to development and 5% to administration. Now, what you're sharing with them in somewhat of an annual proposal is you need to raise $500,000 for the men's program every year, and you need to raise $300,000 for the women and children's program every year. So people who are major donors generally have been successful, generally are smart, intelligent, and you giving them the percentages of how you spend your money helps them see how they may make an impact. All right. The final one is any new information. They may have had a death in the family. They may have sold their business, et cetera, et cetera. All right. The other thing, the far right, is I generally, when I make a call, don't go empty-handed. I have bought books like ministry devotionals, My Utmost for His Highest, different things. The other thing would be if it's a proposal for future ministry. That could be from a new project or from the annual project. And like the proposal there, a specific project to be a leadership gift. And then the final one, there might be a special. They said, well, the next time you come to me, let me know how my gift was used with the new children's wing. And so you want to do a follow-up report, which gets into your annual report, which is a ministry/development report. Maybe there's another time we can talk about what goes into an annual report. I'm not talking about the accounting report. I'm talking about divisional reports on Frontlines ministry. Okay? All right. So that, quite quickly, is the major donor process that you would go through with every donor call you're going to make in major gifts or planned giving. All right, let me just go. All right, I'm going back. Now, we're going to the case for support. And what I want you to focus on are the 3 boxes in the middle: the need, our solution to the need, our programs. This is at the heart of a case for support. A case for support answers the question, why are we doing this? Why are we in existence? Why has God called us to things? All right, so the need is not your financial need. It's not the goal you're setting. It is, what is the need in the world that God has called you to? In other words, what's the heart of the problem? Now, with the rescue mission as a sample, homelessness, the economy, addiction, family breakdown, those are the issues that God has called you to address. That's the need. So what's the solution to the need? Is there hope? After you hear of all the things that are going on in homelessness, you want your donor prospect to say, hey, is there any hope for this? This is terrible. This is our city, our country. You say, yes, we have cutting edge strategies and we have proven programs. Maybe you've been around 30 years, 50 years, even 100 years. This is the hope for a solution. And then the third component is, well, what's your proven success? All that we have done and why we're the best to solve the problem. That's where you list your programs that are successful. Okay, those three are the heart and soul of a case for support. Everything else is supportive in nature. The campaign, the project budget, and quite honestly, your historical highlights and administration. Many people make the mistake of putting those two first. Hi, foundation directors, we are so-and-so, we're so good, please give to us. No, that's at the end. What they want to know is, what are you addressing and how well are you addressing it and why should we look at you? Which is what every major donor wants to know. I include foundations, charitable foundations, as a major donor. Why? Because they go by the same things an individual does. Who are you? Well, I shouldn't say who are you. Who are we as a foundation? What do we give to? And what do you do? And that answers those first three boxes right there. So this is a sample structure. You could write a page on every one of those white boxes, or you could write a half a page on each one, but it will help your group of leadership, board, executive director. You will get on the same page. Now, this can be annual fund, or it can be a capital campaign project. This strategy works for either one. But as you can see, it disciplines you to focus. Now, I'm going to give you just three simple ask strategies. And I offer these because as I've gone through and trained many people, I've trained plan giving officers who are out in the field full time. I've trained capital campaign people, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, okay, hang on a second. Let me go to something. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Let me go back. I'm going to show you a table of gifts later on. And this is what I'm referring to. In the table of gifts, or in any of the forms we've just gone through, you may have a specific amount. You may say the leadership gift is going to be $50,000. So one option is to say, would you be our leadership donor for a $50,000 gift and or pledge? Okay, so that's a specific ask. If you feel you're the right person with the right relationship to ask the right prospect. Okay, you got that? Make sure you don't send the wrong person. There is social standards, those kind of things. I've been a development officer at a university, and they gave me the title Associate Director of Development. So I had enough clout to go see certain donors. You get it? Now, the next level on a table of gifts or on a donor pyramid would be to offer a range of giving, to ask them, you see here our top 10 gifts? Those are our leadership gifts. Would you prayerfully consider being one of our top 10 donors to this project? And the third one is just to show them the table of gifts and say, here is our strategy. Would you pray where you see yourself in this? And so you give them the whole range. Now, I believe that any of these three should be, or all of these three should be Holy Spirit driven. In other words, you've got your research, you've got your numbers, you've got your list, and then you say, boy, this, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this. I'm not sure who this, you will have a peace about it. And don't go against that. Don't say, oh, I'm going to ask them the top gift but I've never met him before. Don't violate other strategies. Excuse me, I'm a little dry here today. Okay.
John, let me jump in. Let me
Yes,
go ahead and
sir.
jump in with a few questions.
Yep.
One of the biggest challenges I think some people will have is how do you transition someone who has, you've met with them a couple times and you're trying to set up the expectation that you're going to do an ask at the next meeting, or something along those lines. So, because, a lot of times you might have someone who's volunteered or, he was referred to you by another donor, but it may not be clear, are you going to do an ask? And how do you, it's kind of the same thing about, evangelism or something like that. How do you set the expectation so that they're not surprised whenever that comes? And you also don't feel like all of a sudden, you're shifting expectations and they're, being asked and they didn't even know that that's what this was about. So how do you manage that?
Right. I always go to when I have dinners and events, and I say the board of directors invite you to our annual celebration banquet. Then I always put down there an opportunity to support the ministries will be presented.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, what about for a one-to-one though?
Well, I know, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But I'm saying that principle is, let them know. I don't think anybody likes to be surprised. And if you're talking to seasoned major donors, meaning they've done this for a while and given to other organizations, they're savvy. Be honest, be heartfelt. And, some of the things I would say is, Jim, we've talked a number of times. Would it be okay if I come and share a new project with you that I'd like you to know about? And then the other thing is, another example, Jim, you and your wife have been generous every year to our annual fund. And I'm just wondering if I could come and share a few things about our annual fund and how we're doing and how you might be involved. So I am a straight talker from the heart. In other words, I'm not going to say, I want to meet with you to ask you for money. No, I'm not that straight talking. But I do say, and they know, okay, you're coming to ask me something. Now you say, oh, but John, they'll say no. Well, if they say no, then one of two things happen. You didn't know your donor, meaning they aren't ready, or did something happen?
I just changed so that they can see our video. That's fine.
Oh, okay. All right. And you made a mistake. You misread something. Or one time I was teaching a major donor course and a couple working for a Christian university. The person said no. And they came and said, so we failed. What do? We failed. I said, no, you didn't fail. You just learned something. What did you learn? And we went through what they learned, what he said, what he wanted, maybe the next time, da 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 da. So remember, this is not direct mail percentage response rates. This is one-on-one. You learn something. These donors what you're going to find first and foremost, most likely they care about your ministry. And so if they say no and not at this time, or no, that's not something I'm interested in, you learn something, and that's what you do with it.
Yeah. So let me use a specific example. There was a guy who was a Chick-fil-A donor or Chick-fil-A franchise owner, and he worked with us as a guest speaker and faculty. And I met with him a few times and I thought about how do I get him to be thinking about us, and he gave to other organizations, but how do I transition that? So it might be the same type of thing with someone who's volunteered, he showed up a couple times. How do you make that transition?
Well,
yeah.
One of the ways that comes through my mind is again, your ask is you've identified them, they volunteered, the involvement, they're right up to that investment box. And sometimes it's, hey, Jim, I just appreciate your teaching, appreciate how much you've been involved with. Do you have any interest in doing some investing or some giving that could help us in the ministry? No one's going to be offended by that. If you're honest and straightforward, And I just find that, I don't know, maybe it's my Midwest upbringing, but I just find that, and when I have done it, let me just say, I've been very successful. And I've had people say, I really like working with John Frank, da 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 da, because he's da da da. I guess it's a form of transparency, Dr. Sears. It's a form of being yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Now, the other thing, and we talked about this briefly before this, a case for support in many ways for major donors, that's more like doing your homework. So whenever you're actually verbally sharing with them, you're ready. My guess is most of the time in ministry context, you weren't like emailing someone a 12-page case for support. You are more, and I don't know, have you ever done that with major donors where you send them a case for support, or what do you ever
No,
translate that into a document, or is it all done verbally with you?
well, no, it's both. The only time I use a case for support is in the early leadership recruitment of a capital campaign, where I haven't created the marketing communication materials yet. So I'm using the case for support for early recruitment of a steering committee. So they will have seen these before. But when I go to using it for annual fund and I go to use it for the campaign, then you move to a more of a marketing. You have photographs, you have bullet points. You don't have, in a case for support, you're writing on white paper, like a white paper with paragraphs and still
Right. Yeah.
good marketing reading style, short paragraphs. But in a communication piece, it's a little bit more market driven, bullet points, summarizing, those kind of things.
Okay. So as I hear, I kind of have this picture of a diagram with case for support in the middle, and then verbal ask. Then you might have a capital campaign marketing piece. You might have annual fund, marketing piece. That's kind of how you use the case for support. Is that
Yes,
accurate?
the case for support, as I said before, is really getting your team on the same page. I have been in a campaign where the head of the men's program, we had a campaign all designed case for support. We're using a consultant. It was early on in my years. And the the head of the men's division met with a citywide wealthy individual. And he took him through the men's shelter and did all this. And the man turned to him and says, "What do you need?" And the men's shelter director pointed across the street at a building that was not in our campaign and said, "I'd really like that building." Well, it was a disaster. The person looked it up, never sent a gift. We never met with them again. So it's critical that everybody is on the same page. What are the projects that are in the campaign? How much are they? And you stay focused. So
Yeah.
that's the preeminent, purpose, is to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks a lot, Dr. Frank. So I think that wraps up this session, and we'll go into the next session. Thanks.